Hello and welcome to the Matthew Allton Art channel again. This video is documenting me creating a small still life oil painting to replace one of the several that I'd sold in recent exhibitions at the beginning of August. As you can already see from the drawing out, it's a lemon cut in half on a crumpled blue cloth. You'll see that develop as the painting carries on. Those of you who are eagle-eyed may notice already that the lemons are, or the half lemons are, towards the top of the painting. So I made a total compositional error on this really. In the actual reference photograph, the right hand half of lemon was slightly down nearer the bottom right hand corner than the left half of the lemon, and that gave sort of a nice diagonal composition to the sort of photo reference that I'd taken of these fruits. But on the drawing out, you can see that I've not noticed that, and actually the right hand half of the lemon is slightly higher in fact than the left hand half. And that means that by the end of this, you'll see as I go through the painting here, it becomes a very empty half a painting at the bottom. So I was left with a bit of a conundrum as to what to do with that, and you'll see later in the video what I do decide to do with that. But back to this painting, I'll just talk through how I'm creating it. It's oil painting again. I do seem to sell quite well my still lives of oil painting still lives, and therefore I've sold a few over the last couple of weekends when I had 2 weekend-long exhibitions. I started by drawing it out, then rookie error of not checking that drawing, which is why it needs rectifying at the end. And then I have started applying the paint. It's painted on a small 21cm by 15cm plywood panel that's actually mounted onto a wooden frame at the back. You can see I've just blocked out the main colours to start with, so just some shadows around the fruit and that brightest bits of the blue cloth. And then I'm going in to start adding the detail. I'm trying to add the segments here to the lemons. It all changes through time, of course. It's a bit bright, those segments are a bit bright at the moment. I'm just trying to put the variations of tone in those segments now to indicate the sort of, I don't know what you call them, cells of lemon within the segments. Trying to get the texture of the lemon rind. When I actually came to observe this lemon, it wasn't until I started observing how many yellows there are in, or varied colours, but yellows are in the lemon. When you think of a lemon, you think it's just a lemon yellow, and I actually have a paint tube in my set called lemon yellow, but obviously it varies depending on where the light's hitting it and where the shadows are hitting it and that sort of thing. Just adding a couple of pips there, the beginnings of them anyway. There's quite a lot of variation in the segments. There isn't much light getting in there, so actually they're quite dark, as you can see, compared to the rind. They're quite dark. And by the end of the painting of the two halves of the lemon, I don't really make the ones on the right dark enough. They're still a bit too yellow. They are lighter because of course the light is hitting the side, the right hand lemon, and not and raking across the left hand half more. The light's coming from the top left of the painting. As I said at the beginning, I tend to take photographs, my own reference photographs, from the actual objects rather than sit and paint them from life. That's partly because they get dry as you're painting with them and dull, especially if you're doing it over more than one day. I tend to paint alla prima, so that's not too much of an issue for me. But I just think it's easier to control the light conditions. The sun moves, for instance, if you were painting these in natural light. They are in natural light coming through the window. I sort of shut the curtains and let a small chink of light come through and shine onto them. As always with my paintings, I'm trying not to be photorealistic here, but I'm trying to get the character across of the lemon, and by the end I think it works quite well. Just trying to get the main features of the lemon, the things that make the lemon a lemon, and they can be slightly exaggerated in a painting really, and I think this is a slightly exaggerated painting by the end of it, but it definitely gets across the quality of a lemon. You can begin to see what I mean about the wrong composition now on this painting as it comes to its initial final stages. There's a lot of space at the bottom with not a lot going on, and I wasn't happy with it from that point of view. It just looked a bit empty. I will probably do this painting again, the actual 2 lemons, rather than doing it with the addition, which we'll talk about in a minute. The cloth, you can see, is very much indicated. It is a backdrop, and I want it to be a backdrop. I don't really want it to leap out as being important, or it's the lemons at the centre of the attention on this painting, really. But you just want enough detail on there for the eye to recognise it as what it is without it interfering with the main subject, really. Just trying to put some of the yellow reflections from that lit side of the left-hand lemon there in the dark area of the cloth. I really do quite like working on plywood. I don't like working on canvas, it's too rough for me. But the plywood, since I've discovered it, it's quite a nice medium. It's smooth to work on. Yet the paint still seems to stick to it quite well. I'm using, as I do in most of my oil paintings these days, some Gamsol and some Galkyd medium. Gamsol is odourless, and it's much better since I've discovered that. I used to use white spirit or terps, and it's so smelly that you have a headache by the time you're finished, you know, even with the windows open. You can see what I mean about the right hand segments of the lemon being a bit too yellow. There's too much light inside that lemon, so I revisit that when I come to fix the error that I've made. But I think you can see here the issue with the painting. It's not terrible, but I just wasn't happy with the way that I had not noticed the bad composition before I actually painted it all in. I'm trying to fix it there by just putting some more interest in that big blue flat area of the cloth, but it doesn't really work. So this is the painting in its first iteration, which I was hoping was going to be its last iteration, as in it was complete at this point. But I wasn't happy with it. I was left with a bit of a conundrum, really, because it's painted on a plywood panel with a wooden frame behind. If it had been on a small piece of plywood, I would have probably cut the resulting painting and altered its dimensions a bit, made it a bit more letterbox to get rid of all that sort of blue expanse at the bottom. Couldn't do that, of course. Another alternative I had was to sort of add extra texture and stuff, and maybe some more shadows in that lit area of the blue cloth, but I didn't really fancy that. I'd, as well as taking photos of lemons, I'd also bought some limes and some kiwi fruit and stuff, and I'd taken lots of reference photos on the day that I bought the fruit, so it was fresh and looked at its best. And I thought, hang on a minute, maybe I could actually put something that sort of helps the painting compositionally at the bottom. And I picked a half a kiwi fruit from another reference photograph lying on its side. And I thought that would work from a composition point of view, but also I quite liked the contrast of the yellow and green, and of course the blue. And yellow and blue makes green, so I just thought it worked quite well to change the painting. So because it's an oil painting, I had to obviously leave it to dry for a couple of days, and then I returned to it and hoped that I wasn't going to ruin what I'd created, because I was quite pleased with the lemons really, apart from some of the issues and the cloth in the background being a bit too wishy-washy. But I hoped I wouldn't spoil it by trying to add a kiwi fruit to the bottom. And the next bit of the video will show you me adding that kiwi to the bottom, and then we'll see the end result at the end. So here I am actually using a pencil, a mechanical pencil, to actually draw out where I want the half kiwi to go. It goes slightly off the bottom of the painting, but I don't think that matters really. One of the things I quite liked about the addition of the kiwi is that it gave me the opportunity to put some more dark on the bottom right hand corner to balance the dark at the top left of the painting. So you can see it's just a very basic draw out, and I don't really stick to the lines particularly as I'm painting this. As I say, it's dry now, so I can paint right over the top without there being any blue mixing with the green. When I'm painting alla prima, of course, that is an issue, and it would have been more difficult to paint over. One of the things that adding the kiwi does as well is adding different textures to the painting. So although it takes me quite a while to get it looking half okay, the skin, the rough fuzzy skin of the kiwi works quite well, I think. This is me adding the darker shadow to the bottom right again, which I think balances it a bit better as well. It's quite simply painted really, this kiwi, but it's a matter of observing the sort of structure of it and trying to do the brush strokes in the same direction. So you can see that when you cut a kiwi, there are sort of veins that radiate out from that central core. And of course, when it's wet, as this was when I photographed it, it was glistening. Those ribs were glistening. I found it quite difficult to get the translucency of the fluffy skin, because where near the cut you can actually see the light coming through a little bit. I think I do manage it, but it was one of the more difficult aspects. And indicating the hairiness as well took quite a little while with some little brushes to indicate just a few little hairs in here and there. Here you can see some of the seeds going on. Again, I'm not slavishly copying exactly where the seeds are, but again, just looking where they roughly are. And they're not round the central core, they're a bit further out. You can see it's quite a small brush that I'm using for this detail. Trying to put some light areas on those ribs. Not too many, but just where the light is catching the moist flesh of the kiwi. As you can see, there's lots of toing and froing with the hairy skin of the kiwi. But I think I managed to pull it off quite well. You'll see it in the end. As I'm working on the painting anyway, I also decided to try and improve the depth of the shadows that I'd already added to the cloth behind the lemon and that sort of thing, and also change the cloth slightly just to make it a bit more varied in the background. So you can see I'm adding some darks, and I'll add some lights as well, just to give it a bit more texture and a bit more interest without again being too centre of attention. As I said in the first part of the video, the segments of the yellow, the lemon on the right were too yellow, so I'm darkening those down. Well, here's the painting in its final iteration with the kiwi added at the bottom. I think overall I've definitely improved it. I'm not saying it's perfect compositionally. Perhaps I shouldn't have the kiwi cut off at the bottom, but I think it's definitely an improvement on the empty spaced bottom half of the painting that existed before. Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and it sort of shows that it doesn't always work out as it should do. In this case, because I'm using oil paints, it was easy-ish to rectify or fix the problem that I'd created for myself. The sort of thing to take away from this is to, when you've done your drawing out in pencil, if you're going to do that, then do check that the drawing is right as you want it to be before you actually start painting on it and sticking to those shapes that you've actually drawn out in pencil. But all is not lost. I've managed to create something that's okay at the end. Okay, well, if you have enjoyed the video, then do give it a thumbs up for me. And if you're new to this channel, then do consider subscribing. I'll try and create videos on a regular basis and upload them so that people who are learning like I am can pick up tips from how I do it. And I don't know the answers to everything, of course, but it's the way that I do it. And it might be useful for other people who are on the same learning journey as I'm on. Okay, I will see you on the next one. See you soon. Bye.